This is Kevin Pruitt, the 6 month recap with Katie Franklin, our, I think, guest number 2 actually on the podcast. So, Katie, the last 6 months have flown by. What's been going on in the life of Katie Franklin?
They really have flown by. Thanks so much for doing it in the first place and then having me back again. It's fun kind of thinking through it all and coming back 6 months later.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so remind our listeners, just give us a quick short bio. Who is Katie Franklin?
Well, I'm just a small business owner trying to get by.
Sound like a country western song.
My dog and my pickup
That's
truck.
right. Just lost my bass boat in a divorce settlement. That's right.
Thankfully, no divorces in
Yeah.
this one. Anyways, yeah, so it's been good. Just we live in Lynchburg, Virginia. That's where I'm based out of, and I do my small business out of the basement of my house. And I feel like I've kind of just been working out all the kinks and figuring out who I am and where I want to go with it. And so just specialty gifting, engraving, and trying to make cool and unique gifts for people for very special occasions.
So remind the listeners how you got involved in this in the first place.
So I really just wanted to have my own business.
Hmm.
I'm a creative person, have always wanted to make, create, paint, different things. And I don't really, it just had to be a God thing because I really can't remember or put my finger on how I ended up saying, yeah, I think I want to do laser engraving. But a friend of mine actually had a laser engraver, and so he recommended who I could go through to buy it. And just thought about basically, I don't have a lot of space for inventory.
Hmm.
I want to do something that I can um, create multiples of and then sell online and basically ship them through the mail or sell locally. That would be
Right.
my preference. But um, anyway, so I just somehow that ended up being the thing. And so I learned graphic design and I learned the laser engraver itself. I learned woodworking. And over the past year, basically have just put it all together and hopefully made some things that are very memorable gifts for people.
You certainly have. I'm going to ask you: are those earrings? Are those things
They,
you created yourself? Because they're
yes,
really cool.
thank
I mean, I'm
you.
not going to wear earrings. I'm sorry, I just can't pull that off. But they
This is
look
my
good on you.
new product line. Thank you.
That looks great.
I'm actually, this is one of my just new creations that I've decided I think laser engraved earrings would be awesome. And so far, I've only launched it recently. I've got a giveaway going on my Facebook page for people who, so yes, you're a man, but you can still go on to my Facebook
Absolutely.
page and put which earring you like best for maybe your wife or your daughter or something. And then I'm actually doing with the earrings is a laser engraved wooden box for the earring box,
Hmm.
and you can put somebody's name on it and then send it to them as a gift. So the giveaway is going until next Monday or this coming Monday, and I will announce the winner on that same post. So
Well, at the
it's
very
exciting.
end of this, I want to circle back with you because I'm going to ask you how people can find you online. I want you to kind of recap that exactly
Great.
what you just said. But
Okay. Awesome.
so, speaking of that, I'm going to take a little segue right now because I look back at some of the notes originally, and the one person that you kind of highlighted as your inspiration was Joanna Gaines
Yeah.
from Fixer Upper. So, what's really interesting, the tie-in here is that my wife and daughter just got back from Waco, and they visited
Oh,
Magnolia and the store there. But anyway, the hottest thing is this wooden earring thing that Joanna has created as part of their line. So I thought,
are
there's a
you
there's a
serious?
real tie-in with what you're doing there. So
I see. I did not
that's
know
great
that. I
timing.
haven't been following her recently, so I did not even know that she was doing wooden earrings.
And
Oh
that is the
man.
end of my fashion knowledge. That's all I know, and that's vicarious. So that is not firsthand. So
Well, that definitely adds a little bit of pressure. I need to go out and see what she
there
has
you
going.
go. Look online. Look at Magnolia and see what's happening there. So, but tell me, in the last 6 months, what would you say would be kind of your mountaintop high? What was the highest high that you had in the last 6 months? That one moment you can say, "Wow, this is why I do this."
Ironically, I think the highest high was just 2 days ago, and I had been working on this sign it was a custom order for a customer, and through my Facebook business page.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody that I don't know at all, but he reached out and wanted me to make a 10 Commandments sign. And he was pretty vague on what he for sure wanted,
Right.
Which is pretty common with custom orders. But I want it to look kind of like the thing that you did for the Come Thou Fount sign. I said, okay. So kind of gave him a breakdown for sizes and dimensions and all of that. And, got all the details down and started making that thing. And I was just a nervous wreck, because you never know if you're going to actually create what they have envisioned in their mind. And then on top of that, the worst part about actually getting people their product is the shipping process. I'm in full control over what it looks like before I send it out.
Right.
But I have no idea how it's going to make it on the other end, because these packages sometimes look like they've been drop kicked and sent to Mars.
Or run over with the truck.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And these planks are connected by these little wire, I cut the wire and I bend it and I make these little knots. And anyway, so I did the best I could to package it, put a bunch of styrofoam and shipping paper and bubble wrap and everything else you could imagine in there. And I waited and I tracked it, and it got there on Monday, and I didn't actually hear back from him until Wednesday. And I thought, goodness, what did that thing look like, And he said, basically, it is awesome.
Wow.
And he said, it's even better than I imagined it would be. And it's a gift for his wife for her birthday. And so just that feedback, and just, that to hear that it was better than he imagined, and that it made it there and all that. But it was just like kind of a culmination of what all I have been doing, between the woodworking and the whitewashing and the distressing and the wiring, and just the whole thing put together. And just seeing his satisfaction meant the world. So.
And it wasn't a box of Tinker Toys when it arrived. He didn't say, so how do I assemble this?
Exactly. So, and I tried to explain to him, you're going to have to lay it flat. You're going to have to pull from the top to the bottom so that the little knots lay flat, and I'm like, this is probably a foreign language to this guy, but hopefully it'll make sense when he sees
evidently
it
he pulled it off. That's right.
I think so. Today's the 20th. So hopefully I'll be hearing back about how his wife felt about it.
Do you realize that it is 6 months to the day from our first interview? So I look at it. I put January 20th at the top of the page here. So you gave yourself some like you gave us pain points that you had mentioned initially, and they were, there were a number of things actually, but I think I focused primarily on just how to market better and how to connect with your audience. And then also maybe like the accounting side of things, the backside. So as you receive feedback, was there anything that specifically you can pinpoint that you said, hey, based on that feedback, I tried to kind of integrate that in my business and said this, thanks to Rising Tide, I can see a growth or change as a result of that feedback?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I would just say that as a result of Rising Tide and just doing this podcast in the first place, just really gave me some confidence that I didn't have before. I just super struggle with being on camera or, audio, but just seeing the supportive community that's been built with this has been awesome. The feedback about increasing my web presence, definitely I jumped right on that and attempted to create a website. I went through Pattern by Etsy, which was easy, but it was terrible. So, sorry, Etsy.
Yeah, sure. Insert Etsy promo here.
Yeah, exactly. They did a good job as far as like linking what was already in my Etsy site. And so I didn't have to upload a whole bunch of items and descriptions and things like that. However, it's not good for e-commerce. It doesn't make sense on how to actually purchase. And so my traffic was actually pretty good, but the amount of sales that happened through it were none because it just didn't make sense.
Right.
And so it seemed like people either reverted back to the Etsy site or they just left, which was depressing. So I realized I really needed to go through Wix,
Uh-huh.
and
Kind of create a new site.
that's what I originally had started through, but it was just time consuming, and I had so many other things going on
Right.
that I was trying to process. Um, so I did actually more recently. I think today was actually the day that not, I think I know I published my Wix site today. So
Oh, great.
I
We'll
would
put those in the
love,
show notes.
yeah, I'd love for people to go and continue to add more to my gallery and whatnot. But the goal of the website is to just showcase what I do,
Mm-hmm.
obviously have a web presence, and steer people still to my Etsy site because that's really where I have it set up for a shopping cart.
Right.
But I also would like people to contact me on my website and then tell me what they want to do. They can look at the things I've done. They can say, okay, I like this, but I'd like to change it this way or whatever. And then through just communication on my website, I can do a mock-up, I can make a quote, and then we can, agree on a sale
Sure.
through the website that way. And so,
Sure.
yeah, so that's what I'm hoping. But the other thing that was talked about was just marketing in general. And so since then, there's been a couple of different offerings of webinars for Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and they're free. And so I have gone ahead and sat through those webinars, and certain things apply, other things don't. And I just took notes. And so definitely marketing on Facebook. I have some really great directions to move in.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't actually implemented a lot of those.
Right.
Building a website is extremely time consuming.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I know by firsthand experience.
Yeah.
So I can certainly agree with that. So
Yeah.
well, those are I appreciate the feedback on that because I mean at the end of the day, I mean I want to do two things. I want to promote, solo businesses, startups, but I also want to in essence crowdsource feedback. So that's what I really want to get to, and how do we how do we promote the rising tide concept by raising raising feedback, raising advice, raising just the input that people have, that can really speak into these businesses that we're highlighting. So you mentioned one thing about a quote from your dad: "Always be learning."
Mm-hmm.
Is that still kind of your life mantra? Is that still a life quote? Because it sounds like you've been really trying to learn the last 6
Oh
months.
my goodness, I have learned so much. And definitely the other one of adapt and overcome. The
Mm-hmm.
two definitely combined together are, in my opinion, a necessity to having to running or starting up a business. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've learned things that didn't work. Um, I've definitely learned the whole if at first you don't succeed, try again
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Um, Learning just my trade, what I'm doing, honing those skills has been just invaluable. Um, Realizing that, wow, I really thought that first product was really awesome. And then looking back on it going, what was I thinking?
Hey,
You know,
as long as it's an upward curve, an upward growth curve, we're in
yeah,
good shape.
this is true. This is true. I do see them as somewhere because you're learning.
Right.
Um, and then two different shows so far. One was pretty successful. The first one was actually pretty successful, and the second one was not so successful. And so, just knowing your
Yep.
audience and like that was a huge lesson,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then not being discouraged by the fact that okay, it wasn't super successful, but I realized this is why.
Sure.
It wasn't that my products weren't of high quality or appealing. They just weren't for this
Right.
clientele, this
Right.
group of people. I
That is a
discovered at that
learning for sure.
particular show. Yeah.
That is certainly a learning. I mean that's true of every guest we've had on the podcast, that you do have to identify your audience, and it's not
Yes.
just identifying your audience, it's identifying your audience preferences, and your audience taste and the demographics of the audience, that so you can actually target that
Exactly.
specifically. So last question I want to wrap up with is, so the advice you gave yourself that you would have given your kind of pre-startup self was stop listening to the doubters. How do you think that's changed, or would that change if you had to go back to your pre-startup self today? Would you have different advice, or would you have the same?
I think that advice should stand for the startup
Mm-hmm.
portion of it,
Mm-hmm.
but the 6 month later or the year later person, I think good advice. And I am not a fan of the word evolve,
Mm-hmm.
but I think in this context, it's give yourself permission to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Or
because I
maybe grow.
start right. Well, it's like growing to me is like more or bigger of what you started.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas evolving is kind of like, okay, I thought I spent so much time trying to figure out what exactly do you want to do and what should it look like and how should it be. And then you feel like, okay, well, I need to stay on that track and I can't deviate from that.
Mm.
Whereas you're kind of learning
Yep.
what is good for you and what you're good at and what you should be doing more in this area. And so it's like giving yourself that permission to kind of deviate from what you thought was it to this should be it, and this is what it is becoming kind of thing, and just embrace the change and roll with it instead of being
Mm.
like, but no, my plan was this, and I'm not successful if I'm not sticking to that plan directly.
Right. I love that. You need to put that on a T-shirt or engrave that in some earrings. Embrace the change.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a great live quote.
The next one.
That's right. Well, Katie, it has been a pleasure to catch up with you and just kind of hear how things have gone the last 6 months, and it's just a joy to have you on the show. But just wrap it up with anything else that you want to add, and touch base on that, on your offering on your website. And I do want to ask you while we're talking here is in the Rising Tide Facebook group, post your website
Okay.
in the group as a post, and
Yeah.
let's ask people to speak into it, and I mean there's a lot of great there's a lot of wise counsel in that group, so just
Awesome.
post that in and get some feedback on that. So, but
All
wrap
right.
us up.
All right. Well, if you have a specialty gift need that, someone you is very special to you and you would like to really present them with something that is a lasting, memorable gift, look me up. I'd be happy to work with you. So it's www.franklinengraving.com, and I can definitely, I would definitely enjoy working with you.
And the Facebook page is also Franklin Engraving. They can find you on Facebook as well, right?
It is. The Facebook page is franklin.engraving.
Okay. All
But on
right.
Facebook. Mhm.
All right. Well, listeners, this is a great chance to just kind of catch up, 6 month recap of a guest that was on early on, and just it's great to see that feedback has had a positive impact, and just in essence, once again supporting the whole idea behind the podcast that all boats rise in a rising tide. Katie, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's great.